Oh, there you are. I figured you'd find me. Yeah, I'm back from London, as you can tell. And yes, after I finished my business with the King's paperwork, I did actually get to your merchant, the one you were telling me about. And I paid off the debts that you asked me to and arranged for the shipment of wine you asked for. So he said you'll have it by Michaelmas easily, no problem whatsoever. So it's good. While I was in London, I went by the Tower of London. I saw it. It was just amazing. It was a really, you haven't decided to do what I'm talking about. I saw, all right, I'll give you a hint. At one end, it has a tail that is a little bit like a broom with a brush on the end of it that, might be the size that a house mother might, be cleaning out the front walk or something like that. And on the other end, front end, it's got this kind of serpenty, dragony thing with horns. In the middle, it's absolutely rock solid. It's like a wall. It's this huge wall. It's the size of a crofter's hut. I mean, it's just gigantic. And it sits on these giant tree trunk sized legs. It's just amazing. And if you stand too close to the front half when you're looking at the big middle part, there's a big wavy thing which will knock you around. So you got to stand back a little bit. Yeah, so you figured it out. I got to see King Henry's new elephant in the Tower of London when I was on my trip. What an experience. Man, that thing is huge. They tell me it's 10 years old, has tusks, doesn't look at all like the drawings that you see in the bestiaries. It's absolutely huge. It's just this gray color with black tinges, not much fur, very thick skin, really, really, really huge animal. I have no idea. Oh, and the bestiaries are wrong. Elephants do have knees. I saw them. They work just like a horse's knees. It's exactly the same. I have to say, when you go into the Tower of London to this giant room, it's about, I don't know, 20 feet by 40 feet. That's where they keep it indoors, and then they take it out for walks. It's the first thing you notice is the smell. That animal smells totally different than anything I've ever smelled in my life, and it's really smelly. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. I mean, I've been in a stable with hundreds of horses, and nothing compares to how redolent this beast is. It's just gigantically huge. I can't imagine having such a creature in my house. It's just absolutely amazing to see. So I made friends with the guy who takes care of it. His name is Henri de Fleur. He's the beast master, they call him, or something like that. And so I started asking questions because I'm really curious about this this animal. Where did it come from? How much does it eat? And he said about 350 pounds a day. How much? I said, yeah. And he said, it eats hay, it eats fruit, eats vegetables. It's got to be good stuff, because if it doesn't like it, it starts to throw it around and trample it. So you got to get it good stuff. I said, and what does it drink? He says, it drinks water. You got to keep up the barrels full. We got 3 big, half-ton barrels out here, and we got to keep them full because he's drinking it. How much does he drink every day? About 40, 50 gallons a day, most of a barrel. Holy mackerel. And where does all of that stuff go? And he started to laugh. Henri, he says, see those furrows on the floor? And I'm going, yeah. Those are the drains. What? Yep. Makes a lot. 40 gallons on a regular go. No kidding. Holy mackerel. Oh man, I bet you the tanners and dyers would love to get a hold of that stuff. Yeah, he said, we're talking about it. It's pretty amazing. So where did this come from? I know most of it. And I asked him, I should say I didn't know most of it. I knew little bits of it. I knew that the king had been to France. And so I said, tell me a little bit more. And he said, well, if you'll remember this, right? You'll remember this. Last November, the king went to France, right? King Henry and his wife, Eleanor, went to visit Eleanor's sister, Margaret, who's the Queen of France, and King Louis IX, right? And they spent the holidays together. I mean, these kings have been sort of fighting over who's going to own Normandy and Gascony and all these parts of France. And they met as friends, and they had the holidays together. And Louis gave this elephant to the king as a present. I mean, kings give each other, amazing animals, but this was Louis's elephant that he got when he was on crusade from as a gift from the Egyptians for all the work he'd done, working against Syria or one of the other places. I can't remember which battle it was. And they gave it to him and he had it transshipped to France. And the funniest thing that Henri told me, the funniest thing is that it was housed in a little village in France called Wissat, which is right across from Dover. It's the place they make the crossing in the usual case. And the King Henry, after he got back to England, after having visited France and hung out with the King of France and the big family party type stuff, he tells the Sheriff of Kent, go fetch my thing and bring it back to London if the sailors think it's safe. So here's the poor Sheriff of Kent, and he's got this elephant to take care of. So the sheriff hires a crew, hires a big boat. They get it on board. The elephant's used to this. They travel all the way from Egypt to France on a boat. They lash it to the center of the boat to keep the boat balanced, and they sail across the channel. And they get to Dover and they go, this is working out. So they continue up the coast. And they get around to the corner where they're going to turn the corner, go up to the Thames, and they end up having to go out into the North Sea, and they get caught by the winds and a storm that starts brewing. And the ship is heaving and wheeling and stuff like that. And they're getting worried because the elephant's getting really mad, starting to scream and yell and making it stamping its feet, stuff like that. And they're really worried about the safety of the ship and the crew. And so they give up and they dock in Sandwich. You remember Sandwich. Sandwich has got that really nice harbor with the sandbars on the outside that protect it from the rough seas. And they disembark it. They unload it onto the grounds, wait for the storm to pass, and the next day it won't go back on the boat. So they walk it all the way from Sandwich across all of Kent back to London. Took them 4 days. Oh man, I wish I had been part of that story. The way that Henri described it, every single village that they came to, there were people coming out. Every single town, the masters of the town would come out, and the sheriffs would come out. And they all look at this unbelievably large creature as it would stop at random places and sort of eat things and pull leaves off of trees and stuff like that and munch them down. And it was apparently pretty peaceful 4-day walk across almost all of Southeast England. And except for this one instance, this happened just before they got to Canterbury, the Archbishop of Canterbury's estate. There was a bull on the side in the pasture that took umbrage at this monstrous creature walking on its territory, and it charged the elephant. Now, I don't know about you, but when you see a bull that's really having a bad day and is charging, everybody's diving for the weeds. The elephant stood straight from the way it was described to me, sat on it as it came up, then picked it up and threw it on the ground all in one move. Killed it instantly. That's just, who's going to pay for this bill? Certainly not the king. If you attack the king's property, it's your problem. They get it back to London. It's been there. They take it out every day. It's really quite remarkable. I have a lot of hope for this elephant because it's the cement and of the friendship between the English king, Henry, and the French King Louis. And I just think that that's really remarkable. I just wish the best for this animal. Boy, I would like to ride on this thing. I see that in all of the bestiaries and stuff like that, there are guys riding on top of it. It must be absolutely funny. It was just huge. It was an amazing experience. You should, if you're ever in London, I highly recommend that you stop by and take a look at it because it's just amazing. And while you're there, I recommend that you stop in the early morning on the London Bridge, right, over the Thames, and watch the tower carefully, because every morning they let out this giant, huge white bear that stands almost as tall as the elephant, like over 10 feet, and they on a long chain, and they let it swim in the Thames and catch its own lunch. Can you believe that? It's unbelievable. It was a gift from the King of Norway, Hakon. He gave it to King Henry as for his menagerie. So if you go to London, you can see not only the king's elephant, which is a stunning beast, but you get to see the giant white bear as well. I highly recommend it. Totally a lot of fun. Man,